Hello, everybody. Welcome to week 5 of a good football show, Fantasy Kickoff, served by Applebee's. I am Patrick Daugherty, joined as always by Mr. John Daigle, Mr. Denny Carter, Mr. Kyle Dvorchak. We're going to get into all your lineup questions throughout the next hour, but first, as every week, we're going to take a spin through the news, which unfortunately this week is very heavy on big name injuries. None bigger than Dalvin Cook out for the Vikings, Kyle. Alexander Madison's getting his second start in 3 weeks in place of Cook. The first time he touched the ball 32 times for 171 yards. The Vikings are 10-point favorites against the Lions defense that loses a new starter every week to injured reserve. Kyle, how high is too high for Alexander Madison?
I mean, I think you could, if you told me he's your RB2, I'd be like, yeah, he literally got, like you said, 32 touches. He plays a terrible defense. They're massive favorites, and they have a super condensed offense to the point where there's room now for a third pass catcher every week to emerge. When we last saw Madison as a starter, it was Madison who saw 8 targets. We've seen it rotate between Madison that week, Osborne, sometimes Dalvin Cook, and Tyler Conklin. But knowing that he's not just a lock for 20-plus carries, but probably 3 to 4 targets at a minimum, yeah, I have him as my RB5, and I really think you could make an argument that he's the second best running back on the slate.
You could. I have him as the RB6 behind a spot behind Zeke. I thought about putting him ahead of Zeke, and yeah, like you said, anything other than RB1 feels like fine for Alexander. And basically, if you have him in season long, you're jamming him in there no matter what. Daigle, real quick, I'm going to ask you about a different running back. I mean, are we going with the Madison chalk in DFS, or is it too risky?
I actually think it sucks Dalvin Cook was called inactive because I had Madison everywhere since Friday. I was hoping to play him with Cook active. But
you were hoping the show started 20 minutes later.
You don't overthink it. In a situation like this, Madison, of course, is underpriced considering what he's going to do. You couldn't dream up a better spot if you wanted to, even given what everyone said, plus the Vikings 30.5 team total against the worst defense in the NFL. This is a situation where you go overweight on the player. Don't overthink it.
Don't overthink it. And by the way, the Falcons appear to be overthinking against the Jets. They just gave up a touchdown to Michael Carter. It's now 20-16 in London, England, London town.
I also mentioned every Jet and showdown except the one scoring touchdowns.
we send only our best to England, by the way. Daigle, also, we got Joe Mixon at less than 100% against the Packers. Narrow home underdogs, the Bengals. Chase Edmonds at less than 100% against the 49ers. Are you pivoting away from either of them in season long? And the situation is too murky in DFS to bet on either or to bet on their backups. Just what in the world do we do with the Bengals and Cardinals backfields today?
I actually don't think the outlook for Chase Edmonds changed at all. He was a game time decision, but called active overnight Saturday, which is even more encouraging. And so however you ranked Edmonds anyhow on midweek, low-end RB2, RB3, best used in PPR leagues, that's his outlook. Nothing else changes. James Conner still in the red zone. If anything, you might say James Conner gets a few more between the 20s carries, but overall, we don't have to adjust much. For Joe Mixon, it's a little tougher just because there are reports out there. Jeff Hobson of The Athletic, for instance, said he actually believes Mixon's going to hand close to his normal workload, 15-plus touches, which is odd considering Mixon was a game-time decision coming in, and now we have reporters confident about his usage. I prefer to stick Mixon around Damian Williams' range as a middle-of-the-road RB2 just because we are unsure, even though we are higher on Mixon's ceiling than those interim running backs. For instance, if it comes down to Madison or Mixon for you, Madison is very clearly the much better play. Even if Mixon was at full health, Madison is the better play than Mixon anyways. So I think it's a little risky, but high-end RB2, middle-of-the-road RB2, that's where I'm sticking Mixon personally.
Sounds about. I mean, James Conner? I mean, I'm concerned about Edmonds. Conner, he has that pass-catching history too. I mean, he's not a good pass catcher, but he's caught a lot of passes. I do have some Edmonds fear, but I have him ranked still on the RB2-3 borderline. So I think you broke down both situations perfectly. Denny, tight end, we go to you when the bad positions have bad setups.
Absolutely.
George Kittle's out with a calf injury. TJ Hawkins ends at well less than 100% with a knee injury in a game where the Lions could be out of it early, kind of maybe pack it in, look forward to week 6. Who are some of the sicko tight end streamers out there for week 5?
I have some sickos this week, and nothing is more sick than being bullish on Ricky Seals-Jones, who is the number one tight end for Washington with Logan Thomas out with a hamstring injury. I wrote an incredible number of words on Ricky Seals-Jones this week in my Target Decoder column. You can check that on the site, NBCSportsEdge.com. And I can tell you that he basically played every snap. He did play every snap after Thomas exited in week 4 with the hamstring issue. And he ran a route on over 80% of Taylor Heineke's dropbacks.
You know, the guy.
The quarterback, whatever, Heineken. And so look, 2,500 on DraftKings is too much for me to pass up on a guy who's going to be on the field a lot. And I kind of like the tight end matchup against the Saints. I wrote about why it doesn't look like a good matchup against the Saints, why the Saints look like a very difficult team against tight end. It has more to do with the teams they played than actually being great against tight ends, I think. So Ricky Seals-Jones is one. Tyler Conklin is another, really great usage in recent weeks in Minnesota's offense. The Vikings have the 4th highest total of the week right now, which, we want tight ends in high scoring environments. Like when in doubt, pick the tight end in the potentially high scoring game or for the high scoring team. In this case, I don't think Detroit's going to post a ton of points here. Tyler Conklin ran a route on a season high 78% of Kirk Cousins dropbacks last week against Cleveland. He had 4 catches for 18 yards on 6 targets. I know, that's not it's not exactly what we're looking for, but 6 targets is healthy. Everything is very healthy for Tyler Conklin right now.
It's good. So that's how you start the show. That's in J school, they start the show with Ricky Seals-Jones talk, then pivot to Tyler Conklin talk. That's how you start a show in this industry. And now how we start the show is getting into your questions. This could have easily been one of the intro questions today. What do we do with the 49ers backfield, Daigle? Is Elijah Mitchell playable this week? And half PPR, really any format. And Trey Sermon, I mean, are we afraid the Niners, who seemingly looking for any reason to fade Trey Sermon, are we afraid Sermon kind of like immediately tumbles out of the flex ranks? What is your outlook on the 49ers backfield?
I have Elijah Mitchell well over Trey Sermon. The last time we saw them, Mitchell handled every single running back carry with JaMychal Hasty playing on passing downs in the first half of week 2. Trey Sermon didn't play a single snap in the first half. And then when Mitchell got injured in the second half, only then did Trey Sermon play. And since that time, Sermon, like last week, handled 19 carries, but didn't get a single target because he's not the pass catching back. Kyle Juszczyk, their fullback, actually was top 5 among all running backs as a fullback in routes run. And so maybe Mitchell splits carries with Sermon. But again, last time we saw him, 38 total touches through the first 2 games. And so I think there's also an option that he gets a few targets as well. So I think Elijah Mitchell is a very sneaky DFS play. And then also for redraft, I would like to be more confident than RB3. But just so my mentions don't burn, I'll say RB3. For instance, I have a situation where I have Tony Pollard, or Elijah Mitchell, and I'm going Tony Pollard. I think they're very close, though.
So real quick, just follow up on this. ROTO Pat on YouTube, RotoPat, I guess, wants to know, it's a weird league where you can only start 2 quarter running backs, Mixon, Edmonds, or Trey Sermon. It sounds like you probably want me to stick with Mixon. I mean, him. To stick with
I would say for RotoPat, I would stick with Mixon in that case. Yeah.
All right, I've got Chase Edmonds in there right now. So thoughts and prayers to that random user. Kyle, Danny on YouTube wants to know CeeDee Lamb or Damian Williams is my flex in PPR. I probably know what you're going to say, but maybe I don't know what you're saying. And then what's the Damian Williams line?
Yeah, I will take CeeDee Lamb over him because CeeDee Lamb looks like the number 1 receiver for Dak Prescott in a game that has an extremely high total. The Giants, surprisingly, maybe actually can put up points. And the Dallas defense, despite having some good turnover luck recently, still one of the bottom teams in yards per play allowed. So I expect this to be a shootout. I don't think it's quite as boring as we saw last week, where they take an early lead and kind of just run the ball. I expect it to be a good scoring environment. Damian Williams, though, it's a difficult decision because Damian Williams, I do have him projected to be basically Dave Montgomery, maybe a little less explosive, right? Because I just don't buy that Khalil Herbert is really going to be doing much in this game. He's returned on the year more kicks than he has actual rush attempts. He's obviously not been a factor. Whereas Damian Williams at times has taken over that 3rd down role with David Montgomery healthy. And as we saw with the Chiefs, he was a 17 carry or 17 touch per game guy through his final 8 games with the team. And obviously he scored a bunch of touchdowns for that team as well. So I think he's a legitimate bell cow, but I think CeeDee Lamb is probably more in the conversation with the super elite running backs, anything but Derrick Henry, or for me, Alexander Madison, Zeke. as soon as you're talking about the RB 6, 7, 8, I think you can reasonably say you should take CeeDee Lamb. I have Williams as more as like an RB 13, 14 type of guy.
This does feel like the week that CeeDee Lamb hopefully comes back to earth with us. Denny Dan on YouTube, he's lost Dalvin. He needs a flex. Dalton Schultz, Randall Cobb, Christian Kirk, and do you have any Dalton Schultz thoughts? Is this something we can actually start betting on as a low-end tight end one, or is it still kind of scammy, still something that's going to disappear soon?
Well, I think for as long as Michael Gallup is out, I think we can, bank on some sort of floor for Schultz. I kind of want to go Kirk here, but I think Schultz is the play. Giants have been pretty soft against tight end through 4 weeks, so I would lean Schultz.
Also, what's happening with Randall Cobb, although he's not a bad play, is that it's more whack-a-mole with Allen Lazard, who ran significantly more routes than Cobb, and Robert Tonyan, who had season highs in targets, snaps, and routes run on Aaron Rodgers dropbacks last week. So I know it was Cobb who had the 2 touchdowns, but like, let's say Minnesota situation and KJ Osborne or Tyler Conklin, it literally goes either way weekly. And so that's why we don't really want to chase Randall Cobb's touchdowns whenever there was a separation with Dalton Schultz last week, 23 routes to Blake Jarwin's 10, as Schultz has become the tight end one, at least while Gallup is out.
Yeah, he's this generation's CeeDee Lamb. It's pretty straightforward there in the Dallas target tree. And Daigle, will stick with you. Cookie's big toe. We're just sticking with you for all Joe Mixon. Joe Mixon or Damian Harris in PPR. Damian Harris, we love the bounce back potential against the Texans, but it is 4 offensive linemen. Did any of these Pats offensive linemen get cleared, or are they missing 4 starters? And who are you rolling with here?
It's so close again. Damian Harris last week, I know, season high in snaps and routes run, but also only 4 carries as the game plan was, as every team's game plan against the Bucs, is to literally not run against them. And so I think the routes and targets for Damian Harris were skewed because he was still the starter, except as the starter, he was asked to become a pass catcher when that's probably not going to happen ever again the rest of the season. JJ Taylor healthy scratched. I believe Brandon Bolden will step right back into that role as the poor man's James White, since he had 5 targets and 11 routes last week. It's very close because Harris also, for New England's offensive line, that situation's getting overblown. Those guys weren't playing good anyways. And so, like, 4 starters missing actually doesn't matter that much against the Texans front 7. I am going to still say Joe Mixon. I'm going to believe the report that he will handle close to his usual workload. How effective he'll be, I don't know. But I think it's close enough to where I think Mixon's pass catching work will still be more than Harris's.
You mentioned JJ Taylor. I think he got renditioned to Groom Lake in Nevada. You should look it up if you don't know what Groom Lake is, folks.
After that fumble on the second touch, we knew it was coming. We knew we were never going to see him again for the rest of his career.
So yeah, JJ Taylor is not in Houston. He's in Groom Lake.
You couldn't have said Siberia or something. People get.
Groom Lake is it's Area 51. I was trying to be cute. It's the local name for Area 51.
A little too cute.
It is a little too cute. Denny, Luke on YouTube, bench one, and then talk about AJ Brown. Are we right back to the top 12, right back to the top 10 for AJ Brown, or any circumspection, any caution with AJ Brown?
This is a good decision to have, having to bench one of these guys. Woo. Yes, I know AJ Brown is a potential target monster today. Julio Jones being out. I believe I think you have to play AJ Brown, and I would bench there Adam Thielen, I suppose.
I think so.
Because Deontay Johnson, look, the Steelers are not going to move the ball on the ground against anybody, including Denver. Okay, especially Denver, against Denver. That leaves Roethlisberger dropping back a ton again. Lots of short little dink and dunk passes. That's Deontay Johnson's game. So we're looking at double-digit targets again for Johnson. Probably a negative game script, maybe a neutral game script for a while. I could not bench him, but AJ Brown. I think he is a full go, unless I missed a report somewhere where it's going to be limited. So against just a horrendous Jacksonville secondary, you need to play him.
AJ Brown was full on Thursday and Friday, so He's perfectly fine.
Yeah, and most people are not going to be in a position to bench Adam Thielen, as you alluded to, Denny. But that situation, I think you got to go with the Brown upside. You got to go with the Johnson targets floor, and you got to bench Mr. Adam Thielen. Kyle, This one, I mean, we know the answer, but talk about Miles Sanders and Kenneth Gainwell. We talked about it a lot this week on our various podcasts, but can we even start Miles Sanders over Kenneth Gainwell at this point? Or where are we at here?
I will still take Miles Sanders over Kenneth Gainwell, and I'm actually very concerned about Joe Mixon this week. But the downside is that Joe Mixon comes out and splits his backfield. That's like the upside for Miles Sanders, right? Is that like, oh well, what if he gets more carries and more targets than Kenneth Gainwell? Whereas at least Joe Mixon, I haven't projected for a worse market share of both the backfield targets and the backfield carries. That still puts him leagues ahead of Miles Sanders, who is completely splitting. Like he's getting out targeted 18-14. On the year by Kenneth Gainwell. He's running more routes than Gainwell, but it doesn't really, it rings hollow, right? If you can't actually draw targets while you're out there running routes. He's still out carrying Kenneth Gainwell pretty clearly. But the thing is, the Bengals are a team that have shown a very high, propensity to run the football, especially when they're playing in anything that is other than like getting blown out, right? Whereas on the other hand, we know Philly's strategy is just to let Jalen Hurts be a superhero and then don't care about establishing any sort of ground game. So these are two teams playing opposite styles of football. And I think they're both committee backs this week. I'm just being a little conservative in how I project Mixon, but it doesn't matter. One committee back on a team that should have no problem running the football, that wants to run the football, and Miles Sanders, who isn't going to get the targets, and his team isn't actually going to run the football with their running back. So yeah, I would still take Sanders, who's getting more carries and a similar amount of targets. 18-14 isn't like a blowout for Kenneth Gainwell. So I'd take Sanders over Gainwell, but that doesn't say a lot at this point.
I was hoping you would just say drop Miles Sanders. I think that's probably fair. I think at this point, I don't think anyone on the show would really debate that. No, they would. Not time to drop Miles Sanders. By the way, the Jets putting the Falcons, putting the finishing touches on probably the biggest win in franchise history here in London over the Jets. So didn't blow a game to the Jets in London. That's going to be a banner in Mercedes-Benz Stadium. Island Boy Gamers on YouTube, who's with us every week. Sup, Island Boy. Sam Darnold and Justin Herbert, who two guys have been playing really well in real life, but it hasn't quite translated to fantasy so far for Sam Darnold, for Justin Herbert. And Sam Darnold, this unsustainable running game usage. Who wants this one? Denny, who wants to talk about quarterbacks? Denny or John?
I'll take it.
Yeah, what do we do here? I mean, they're like both on the QB1 borderline, I feel like. And I honestly was kind of like putting on a blindfold when I was ranking the QB 10 to 15 range this week.
Yeah. It's close, but I'm leaning Herbert, if only because I like the matchup a little better. I like his spot a little better. So 74% of the yards gained against the Browns this year have come through the air. That's the 9th highest rate in the league. I think there's a possibility the Chargers will establish if they get out to a lead here. If Baker Mayfield,
Roundtree, Mizzou's Larry Roundtree,
him too, yes. Baker Mayfield, if he's not right and this game gets away from the Browns, this decision could backfire. But I'm banking on Baker Mayfield being slightly less terrible this week. So we're going to go with Herbert here in a good spot. Both Mike Williams and Keenan Allen are in what the Zoomers are calling smash spots, I believe.
In our consensus ranks, we have Herbert one spot ahead of Sam Darnold. So it looks like you hit the nail on the head. I have Darnold ranked higher. It appears I'm the only person that has Darnold ranked higher. I was kind of making the half jokey but half real point. I still think the Darnold rushing might be slightly more real than people think, because without Christian McCaffrey, read options seem like their bread and butter, play at the goal line, and he seems to really like to keep it.
Yes.
But also just hoping for maybe would it be a sneaky shootout between the Panthers and Eagles, or just not a sneaky shootout? How much do we respect the Panthers defense? Like, are we believing in the Panthers defense, or is the Panthers defense more like the defense we saw last week, John?
I don't know if I'm trusting them that much. Also, Jalen Hurts has been fairly good against the blitz. It's a small sample, but 27-47 with 4 touchdowns and no picks. So I don't know. A shootout, if you told me to pick one, I think a shootout would be more likely than one team dominating the other.
So it is really close, but 3 of the 4 NBC Sports Edge rankers have Justin Herbert ahead of Sam Darnold. So that's probably the way you need to go, Island Boy Gamers. You go, don't believe me. This is a tough one here. Kyle, rank these wide receivers in PPR. I mean, Deontay Johnson's number 1 for sure, but then are we going with like Jalen Waddle and kind of hoping for some of that extension of the running game usage for Jalen Waddle, for the receiver desperate Dolphins or the bigger role for Visca or even T. Higgins? How in the world do you rank in these three?
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head with Deontay Johnson. Like, it's just so obvious that this team can do nothing but pass the football very shallow at a very shallow ADOT. So that's perfect for Deontay Johnson's skill set. I guess I'm taking Jalen Waddle here. I mean, when you look at the rest of the guys, I don't believe Laviska Shenault will lead his team in targets. I still think it's more likely to be Marvin Jones. T. Higgins, he could, but he also couldn't. It could be Jamar Chase. It could be Tyler Boyd on any given week. I'm fairly confident that Jalen Waddle is not only going to lead his team in targets, but surprisingly has a good matchup versus a Bucs defense that is good, just not at defending the pass. They are very good against the run, and teams completely abandon the run. And we've already seen that the Dolphins have no ability to run the football anyway. So it's a match made in heaven in terms of, I mean, you know, you don't love targeting Jacoby Brissett's top receiver, but when his top receiver could really push for like a 30% target share in this game against a defense that is match made in heaven for like targeting through the pass, I guess Jalen Waddle is probably my second. It doesn't even feel that close. I think I have him ranked as almost top 20 receiver, if not right on that 20 line.
The T. Higgins guys, I mean, he was someone before the injury. We were kind of like flipping coins between him and Jamar Chase, Denny. Is there separation now, or are we just going to overreact? Because there is separation. I have pretty big separation in the ranks this week with Jamar comfortably ahead of T. Higgins, kind of like giving T a week basically to reestablish himself. Or is that a mistake? I mean, should they both be like in the top 24? Is there no real difference between T and Jamar? Or did Jamar show enough as like a big play threat as like the top 5 pick to kind of already settle this question between Jamar and T. Higgins?
Yeah, I think it's fair to have Jamar Chase comfortably ahead of T. Higgins.
And we do here in our consensus ranks, by the way. We have Jamar wide receiver 19, T. Higgins a wide receiver 33. Sorry to cut you off there, Denny. Okay.
No, it's fine. And you know, but T. Higgins had pretty decent usage in his 2 games before the injury. He had 15 targets, 10 receptions. He had a touchdown in both games before his injury. So, you know, in DFS, I really do enjoy some T. Higgins this week as sort of a pivot away from Jamar Chase. Is that galaxy braining it? Probably.
It's a little bit, yeah.
Probably, yeah. It's my brain is getting too big for my skull. But don't ignore Higgins just because he's he's good. Like they gave him that extra week to get right, to get healthy. He should be out there a lot in a game that could see the Bengals throw a lot with Mixon banged up and, with the Packers probably marching up and down the field against that Cincinnati defense.
Do either my DFS boys, Daigle or Kyle, have any T exposure today, or is too risky?
No, T is awesome. I would argue, just given where roster percentage is going to come out, Higgins is a better play actually in DFS than Chase. But redraft, obviously, Chase over Higgins.
Yeah, I have something to see though, because I think the Bengals are a little interesting in that they have, they have been super run heavy through 4 weeks. But this is a spot where if assuming the Packers play well, you're not going to maybe have the opportunity to play run heavy. And then if you wanted to be run heavy, well, now your running back's banged up. You have a full healthy core of receivers and a less than 100%, supposed bell cow running back. I don't think he'll be that in this game. It would make sense for this to be the game we finally get to see Joe Burrow unleashed. So for that reason, I have some Higgins because he's combined with Burrow.
Thoughts and prayers for that. And, we need thoughts and prayers in week 5 already. Everyone's injured. The buys are finally starting next week in week 6. Means it's trade season, which means it's Lawrence Jackson season. He's got another video with some advice for traders here as we get into the heart of the fantasy football season.
Should trades be vetoed in your fantasy league? It's a serious one now, so I'm going to break this down for you real quick. Psych? No, I'm not. Hell nah, you shouldn't be vetoing no trades in no fantasy league. For what? A commissioner about lame as hell if he vetoing trade. What, do you want some power? Want to be cool? Feel like you the man? Vetoes are boring. I'm a commissioner in the league with my partner. A couple weeks ago, one of the dudes in the league gave up Javonte Williams for Nelson Aguilar. Funny, right? I ain't gonna veto it. I damn sure laughed at him, but that's besides the point. Unless you got a team that like 10-2, trading with a team that's 2-10, and little buddy want to give up Alvin Kamara to his little girlfriend who also in the league because he want to be cute, and he take David Johnson and the rest of the bench players. It should be a go. It got to be outrageous collusion. They veto trades in your leagues, get out. Matter of fact, if your commissioner named Vito, get out. Sorry to everybody named Vito, but I'm on one right now. You should get a 5-year fantasy football ban if you veto trade. Do not do it. It is for the weak. Fantasy football is for the strong, and it's supposed to be fun.
I mean, Lauren, I just want to say I had some leaked emails, and it seemed like pretty clear collusion. It turns out it wasn't, but
that was tough. That was tough but fair. A 5-year ban.
Fair.
You know, I mean,
5 years is pretty tough. I mean, that's a non-trivial amount of your percentage of life here on Earth. A little tough, but it is tough but fair. Like you said, it's fair. You veto a trade, you pay the price.
Did Lawrence take a shot at people named Vito?
He did. Vito. Funny. I mean, there's not, it's not as many, people of Italian heritage in America anymore. Not many Vitos these days, but there's still enough where I'm sure the Vitos are very upset out there. So Lawrence, just keep your head on a swivel for the Vitos. Jason Lim on YouTube. I mean, this one's easy, right? I know I asked you because I figured this one's not easy for you as the leader of the Hunter Renfrow lobby, but is this one easy?
Yeah, no, you're going Renfrow, I guess.
What?
I mean,
I was hoping the easy answer was Waddle. Sorry.
Oh, really?
Trying to rig the question in favor of Waddle.
I know I spoke up for Waddle earlier this week, and I know Devontae Parker's out, but Renfrow has such a solid, a solid role in like a pretty good passing attack in a matchup that's not all that intimidating. I do have a lingering fear that the Miami offense just completely collapses.
It's going to, but that'll be good for Jalen Waddle. I think myself, John, and Kyle will all tell June to start Jalen Waddle, correct?
I would lean Waddle's 15 catches for 16 yards. Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say, he does have that, if it's a standard league, you might only get, 3 points, right? But that's the same thing with Hunter Renfrow, too, except Hunter Renfrow is probably, at best case scenario, his team's second pass-catching option, whereas, Jalen Waddle, I couldn't name you their receiver 4. I know who will start in 3 receiver sets. I'm not entirely sure I know who their 4th option is.
Preston Williams, Albert Wilson.
No, those are the guys who start in 3, though.
These are guys. Yeah, that's true. Well, I thought you were about the 4th option. That includes Giuseppe. I have literally no clue who the number 4 receiver is, though. So, by the way, Denny, the lawyers aren't going to like this. 3 people. He's so spectacularly wrong. All 3 of his coworkers disagree with him live on air.
Just because I am a little bit, more physical and stronger than Hunter Renfrow, that doesn't mean,
We're writing up a memorandum on this. John, Brendan on YouTube, Kenny Galladay, AJ Green. I think probably know the answer to this, but again, 2 really interesting situations here. So break down just Kenny Galladay's week 5 and break down AJ Green's week 5.
Well, it's basically Kenny Galladay still leading the team in routes run even last week when he was banged up. And again, Sterling Shepard, Darius Slayton, both out. So while Tony has a target-based floor, Kenny Galladay is still the individual getting 19% of the team's targets as a 2-touchdown ceiling player. And what is the week's second highest total, depending where the line is moving the past couple hours, I would go easily Galladay over Green. Green's still surviving as well. But also, I think we're actually in store for more of a Hopkins week, since we know 2 games in a row he was battling rib injuries, and then last week draped by Jalen Ramsey for a majority of time. This is going to be his easiest matchup on paper, at least since week 1 for Hopkins. And so Kyler, as good as he's playing, cannot support Max Williams, Hopkins, Christian Kirk, and Green weekly. And we've seen it's been the past couple of weeks at least, Hopkins and then Moore and Kirk failing to get there while Green and Max Williams have. I think we see a little bit dispersing of the targets, and it's more of a Hopkins week. So I go Kenny Galladay quite confidently.
I do go Galladay confidently there too. And a good breakdown of the Cardinals situation, kind of a confusing situation. Also confusing, Kyle. I mean, the Ravens, are they activating Rashad Bateman for Monday Night Football? Do we know this yet? Because that affects the answer to this question. But who do you start, Kyle, in PPR between Jamar Chase and Marquise Brown?
Yeah, I can pull up Bateman right now. I don't know if he'll be active, and I don't know if, especially in his first game back, he missed like a decent chunk of training camp, like late in August. I don't know what his role exactly would be. I wouldn't project him to be like this every down player yet that Marquise Brown, seeds a ton of targets to. So I would say this week, probably Marquise Brown. In 3 weeks, when I think Bateman will eventually become a full-time player, I'm probably less confident in that answer. But I'll say for now, Marquise Brown, who outside of if you ignore the hilarious drops, the volume is obviously there. Like a super good combination of targets and air yards on an offense that even if they don't pass a lot, we can comfortably project him to be one of the most efficient passing attacks. And Lamar Jackson is playing almost better than ever like this season. So I will still go Marquise Brown here, kind of independent of Rashad Bateman's status.
Yeah, it's just a really interesting situation where both have a variable. T. Higgins return, Hollywood and the drops, and then of course Rashad Bateman. So yeah, we don't know Rashad Bateman's, since he's on IR, they don't have to announce like basically until before the game if they're activating him. So we probably won't even know.
I would assume 4:00 before the game is when like transactions happen, and they don't have to do injury status for him either because he's on IR. So we don't know exactly like if he's been what they would call a full practice or not.
So Rivers McCown will actually be blurbing tomorrow afternoon. Rivers, if you're listening, be on the lookout for that. Darnell Christopher on YouTube, Denny. Emmanuel Sanders, your boy, or Darnell Mooney, my boy.
Yeah, really close.
Think carefully.
Well, and can I call the lawyers before I answer this?
Yeah, actually, that's it. We'll go to John with a different question. You call the lawyers, consult. We don't want you in any more trouble. No, sorry. Yeah, who are we going here with?
All right. Well, I'm going with the guy in the higher scoring environment. I'm going with Manny Sanders, and I know you're shocked. You're shocked over this.
I am.
But I mean, he has like a really good role in a Buffalo offense that
really good seems like a stretch. He's playing a lot of snaps, which sometimes I think we're like too quick to equate like snaps with a good role sometimes.
I mean, I don't have it in front of me, but it's more than snaps. He's not just running.
I think he's got like a high 20% air yard share. He is going to be probably, I think you reasonably project him third on the team in targets because Stephon Diggs, and Cole Beasley just gets an insane amount of targets. But he is, I want to say it's like 28% air yard share just because they're not afraid to just bomb it to him.
Yeah, he's not just running laps out there. Like he's involved, and unlike other Bills games this year, I think that we're going to get a full game of the Bills starters, which is kind of rare against the Chiefs.
That's a really good point, actually.
I go with Sanders.
Yeah, I'm jamming in. I mean, 30 team total. The Chiefs defense failed to force the Eagles to punt a single time last week. So I'm just jamming in my Zach Moss, my Emmanuel Sanders, Dawson Knox. They're all going in this week.
By the way, Kyle, I'm really impressed by how badly you want Denny to keep his job. Thanks for coming to his rescue. You're being a good friend there.
Well, when Denny said at the beginning of the question, I need to consult my lawyers, I was called as counsel to Denny, the defendant in this case, and I feel like I've done a good job.
You're a very good friend. Steve on YouTube, Daigle, this is a really good one. Latavius Murray, seemingly the Ravens starter now, or James Conner, who unknown touch upside this week with Chase Edmonds, true health unknown.
It would be James Conner for me. Latavius Murray got 18 touches, the team's lead runner last week, but also they said they're going to ride the hot hand. And Murray, even with 18 touches, just doesn't have a ceiling. He's more of a bye-week floor play you put in to patch your lineup. And given the better offense and what we expect to be a better game for the Cardinals, I will lean James Conner, especially with Chase Edmonds' lingering injury happening.
Makes a lot of sense to me. Earlier, we went with Justin Herbert over Sam Darnold. But now this is the same part of the board, Kyle, but Ryan Tannehill or Sam Darnold. I mean, is Tannehill finally getting some kind of groove? He's got A.J. Brown back. Still doesn't have Julio Jones. It does not seem to be the Arthur Smith Tannehill this year. So who are we starting this week? And are we kind of like methodically adjusting Tannehill down the ranks week by week?
Yeah, he comes up compared to last week because we expected them to win, which would have meant not a lot of pass attempts for him. They didn't win that game somehow, inexplicably, but comes up a little bit relative to last week because he now has like an NFL caliber receiver as opposed to like borderline practice squad players to throw to. But they are still a team that projects to be run heavy in a matchup that should really have no problem doing that, where we should probably see another 25 to 30 carries for Derrick Henry. And he still only has one healthy, like talented receiver, whereas Sam Darnold has like a super elite DJ Moore now being fully unleashed, plus a very good Robbie Anderson, and Terrace Marshall isn't nothing. He's still like miles better than the third receiver on the, on the Titans. And then the matchup is just as easy, if not easier, for Sam Darnold. So I'll take Sam Darnold here. I think if we get Julio Jones back in a week or two and they play in a matchup where they're not going to be able to run, that's when it becomes a question. But for now, it's kind of clearly Sam Darnold for me.
And that's what I was going to say about their matchups. You're hanging on those for Ryan Tannehill in redraft leagues because their next 4 games for the Titans, Bills, Chiefs, Colts, and Rams. 3 of those, they have to have Tannehill lighted up. So absolutely hold on to him, but agree Darnold over Tannehill this week.
Here's a big injury name this week. We didn't mention it in the jump, and we could have. Antonio Gibson, Denny. This is a tough. I mean, I think I know what I would say, but I honestly don't know what like the consensus answer to Antonio Gibson or Joe Mixon would be today.
Yeah, I guess Gibson is playing through something, but I think it's Gibson. I mean, I'm not trusting Mixon to see anything close to a full workload today, and the risk of an in-game injury situation, it just turns my stomach too much. So, would we like Gibson to see more targets and everything? We talk about this every week. Yes, of course. But I think Gibson is the play here.
Also, like, it's nothing new for Gibson. So what we learned should not affect your outlook of Gibson, since he said he's been playing through it. So like you started him still the last 2 weeks. Why would it suddenly change just because now he's in the same situation as the last 2 weeks?
Yeah.
So
in theory, it's nothing. I've seen some of the Twitter doctors speculate it could be like shin splints turning into something like worse. Maybe
the worst thing I've heard is his leg is a ticking time bomb, since it's like fractured and he's playing on it. Having said that, he's still playing on it. It's like whatever. It's he hasn't gone over 90 yards yet this year, but whatever.
It's weird too. And all offseason, remember the lingering Antonio Gibson toe injury, where it's just like, well, is this something he's gonna have to learn to play through? And people don't. I'm a doctor. I wonder if his toe has somehow led to shin issues. I want one of the Twitter doctors to tweet at me about this, because it is seeming not great for such a young player with the very persistent leg issues.
It is a reason in deeper benches to get Jared Patterson on your bench. And waivers.
I think that's one of those rare names. All four of us were like, yes, it's Patterson season. Yes, on the bench immediately. We all love Jared Patterson.
So the Pat, you're right though. The toe bone is connected to the shin bone. So
is that. I can't remember. I need to start singing that song to my kids. Right. So I hope that's true.
My daughter just informed me. Go ahead.
Okay, well, that's good. She's a good source. John on YouTube. He's worried about OBJ. I'll throw to our John. A couple names we've already talked about here. I love Kadarius Toney today, even though this feels very point chasey. I just kind of instantly fell in love with this like start-stop ability last week, but I have no idea what the consensus answer would be here, Daigle.
I would lean Toney. And if you're getting any points, which he says half PPR, he doesn't have the same ceiling, in my opinion, as Odell Beckham. And nothing has really changed for Beckham.
Yeah, I would say I would still start Beckham, by the way.
I think I'd start Toney just because the matchup. It's a miserable matchup against the Chargers pass D. Also, we know like Baker's been bad apparently the past 2 weeks because he does have that torn labrum in his non-throwing shoulder. Beckham was fine. The usage was just fine last week. He even got wide open, but Baker just overthrew him for a touchdown a couple times. So that's really the concern in a super tough matchup. Whereas we're not worried about Kadarius Toney. I can't believe I'm saying this, but like at all.
I can't believe you're saying that either. Actually,
it's just a sweet matchup. Like he's going to play the same exact role he did last week that he led the team in targets in.
I just think this is a continuation of the theme. Dave Gettleman, he just hits every pick out of the park. He's just the way he builds this team. No, I mean, Toney looked good last week.
Andrew Thomas has been really good this year. I don't know why, but he's been awesome this year.
And Toney was like really fun to watch last week, I must admit. Score one for Dave Gettleman. We got about 15, 16 minutes left here on a good football show, Fantasy Kickoff, served by Applebee's. We're still getting into your questions. Let's see here. Got a lot of good ones still. Oh boy. I mean, are we playing Kyle? Are we playing Chase Claypool anywhere today? I mean, are we playing Chase Claypool over AJ Green? I think Kenny Galladay is the choice here. Are we playing Chase Claypool over AJ Green, or is Chase just canceled until further notice?
Oh my God. Yeah. I mean, Kenny Galladay is the choice. You got that one right. AJ Green. I'll take the guy who they keep jamming end zone slants to, as opposed to Chase Claypool, who like who do you have more faith in? Chase Claypool on 8 targets or AJ Green on like 6, right? They're using AJ Green.
A quirky stat. He has exactly 6 targets all 4 games, AJ Green.
There you go. I didn't even, that's coincidental too. I didn't know that. But like AJ Green on 6 targets, pretty much like an every down player, whereas Chase Claypool on 8 targets, also mostly an every down player. But where do those targets originate, right? In the decrepit old hands of Ben Roethlisberger. I will take the 2 target discount when I know that, what I think is the presumptive MVP through 4 weeks that's where the targets come from.
You think you know something about fantasy, and then it's week 5 and you're like, yeah, AJ Green does a better start than Chase Claypool. Yeah.
By the way, you said decrepit old hands have been around. He's like a year older than Denny.
So I have not misspoken. So you're saying I have not misspoken.
He's 8 months older than me.
Yeah, that's Denny. Well, no, in fact, is 45 years old. Tom Guilfoyle on YouTube, Allen Robinson or Kenny Golladay, Denny. Talk about Allen Robinson. This is our Allen Robinson discussion. The Bears have called off the Mafia offense. They don't need to point shave anymore. They're going to actually try to put players in position to succeed. Is this the week it begins to turn around for Allen Robinson?
I mean, honestly, with the Bears receivers straight up, I'm probably playing Mooney over Robinson.
Wow.
This week. But this one, I would say Kenny Golladay is a play over Robinson. I don't have much faith that Allen Robinson is going to be like a set it and forget it type play. I guess the best hope for the Bears offense is that best case scenario, I should say, is that they work in some rushing attempts for Justin Fields, and they take the deep shots. They continue to take the deep shots we saw last week against Detroit. Those are going mostly to Mooney, who profiles as that sort of pass catcher in that offense. So that's where I am on Robinson.
Did anyone have any hope? I mean, surely we got someone bullish here on Allen Robinson or
I don't know about bullish, but I don't expect personally Darnell Mooney to lead the team in targets the rest of the season. So that's the reason I would bet on Robinson.
That's not, Allen Robinson. So it just speaks to, it's not even crazy, the statement Denny just made, which speaks to a very, very bad situation for Allen Robinson drafters. But if today is not the turning point, then you're like entering like 5-alarm fire, full blown panic mode.
Right.
You need the turning point to begin today. Kyle, or who wants this one? TJ Hawkinson or Dawson Knox?
Don't give it to Denny. Don't give it to Denny. We know what he's gonna say, and I don't agree with it. I'm canceling Denny from this one.
So, I'll just set it up
TJ
more.
Hawkinson.
I was just saying, how concerned are? I mean, is any chance they like sit Hawkinson early if there's getting blown out or what? You think it's still safely Hawkinson then, Kyle?
Yeah, especially the way this team has played. I think they're a team that is very likely to, in a 40-point loss, still be trying to get points on the board. I mean, they've played what I'll call scrappy, especially keeping a team like the Ravens close. So I don't think there's a very high risk that TJ Hawkinson is, banged up and doesn't play a half or a quarter. Dawson Knox, an interesting streamer. TJ Hawkinson still like a top 7 player in air yard share, targets to air yards, just all of the stats you want. He's still clearly, I don't want to say elite, because elite to me connotes, basically 2 tight ends that are healthy right now, Travis Kelce and Darren Waller, but he is the next tier down. Knox is probably another tier after that. A good streamer, not competing for top 5 numbers unless, if he scores twice, sure.
A little more to the streamer, but Hawkinson, yes, is still the play. Knox is awesome. Knox is a great tight end. Even the usage behind the scenes is matching Kyle Pitts. He's such a good play, but you're still playing Hawkinson.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine Kyle Pitts. This is Kyle Pitts, by the way, no longer a bust. 9 catches over 100 yards today. Daigle, Aaron Silva. By the way, nice try, Evan. Aaron, please. Mike Williams, Chase Edmonds, or CEH and PPR. We worried about Mike's down week 4. CEH, is this for real, et cetera, et cetera?
There was a slight role change, but I'm not worried about Mike Williams. Top 5 guy through the first 3 games, going right back to him. I think it's that simple. Especially with RB2s, basically. It's not an RB1 question. It's not Alexander Madison or Mike Williams. It's just like Mike Williams or these other 2 guys that no one likes starting anyway. So, they're RB2s. That's fine. And then Mike Williams, like I said, top 5 wide receiver the first 3 weeks. So that's where we're going.
That's where we're going. That's what we like. And so Daigle's not adjusting the ranks on Mike Williams. Denny, of course, adjusts the ranks at the drop of a hat. I mean, someone tweets one thing and all of a sudden they're no longer an RB1. They're an RB4. Right. So, Denny, we're going to find out who you adjusted the ranks on this week.
Hey, everyone. This is Denny Carter with NBC Sports Edge with another edition of Adjust the Ranks today. We'll start in Chicago, where Bears head coach Matt Nagy finally, at long last, named Justin Fields the team starter going forward. Thank goodness for that. Asked by reporters how he feels about potentially being Chicago's starting quarterback for the next 10 to 15 years, Justin Fields replied this week, quote, "I don't even know if we're going to be on this earth for the next 10 to 15 years." Now, in points per existential crisis leagues, we're adjusting on Fields way up. He becomes the automatic QB1 in that format. In more traditional fantasy scoring formats, we're adjusting down on Justin Fields. Why? Here's why. If Justin Fields is out there poring over, I don't know, climate change data and projections from the US government and international organizations, you know what he's not doing? He's not in the playbook. Adjust the ranks. Next, we go to the Atlanta Falcons, who released their Week 5 alternate jersey this week on Twitter, showing the Queen of England herself dressed in Falcons paraphernalia, including wearing eye black. Now, we have to adjust in a big way here, and here's why. If the Falcons are going to use the Queen of England, especially with Calvin Ridley out, the Jets players this week will legally not be able to touch her or to tackle her as she goes down the field. She will simply be able to walk down the football field into the end zone every time. The Queen of England becomes a must start in all fantasy formats in Week 5. Adjust the ranks. Once again, this has been Denny Carter from NBC Sports Edge, reminding you to adjust the ranks.
The Queen of England Photoshops have become quite a rite of passage for the London team games. I believe the Falcons were the first pioneers there, and you basically are off your game if you're not photoshopping the Queen of England.
And if you're playing her in all formats, 28 points today against the Jets, amazing.
Which, by the way, you're immediately monitored by Scotland Yard if you Photoshop eye black onto the Queen of England. I can't say the trade-off's worth it. You will now be monitored for the rest of your life, Atlanta Falcons. But Denny, too, there's debate before the show about if your kicker ranks actually exist, these mythical kicker ranks. Who are your kickers of the week in Week 5?
Yeah, so Kicker Corner is a column that I publish every Tuesday afternoon on NBC Sports Edge, so remember to always check that out. This week's main streamer is Greg Joseph of the Vikings, playing Detroit. Vikings are at home, favored by 7.5 points at last check, with an implied total of 28.25. It's a great spot. Detroit has allowed multiple field goal attempts in 3 of their 4 games, so we are rolling confidently with Greg Joseph. Another guy you might be able to find on your waiver wire is Randy Bullock of Tennessee, playing the Jags against. Again, the Titans are pretty big favorites here. Bullock has 10 field goal attempts in his 3 games as a Titan. The Titans are actually struggling to punch it inside the red zone, and that has benefited Bullock in a big way.
It's Bullock, by the way. Bullock.
What am I saying?
You're saying Bullock. You've been reading a lot of Queen of England fan fiction.
I've been watching too much Peaky Blinders. I'm sorry. So those are two great streamers. I also mentioned, and I was very bullish on Young Hui Koo, who came through with a big day. So you got to read the column, folks.
Wow, it's not even 1 o'clock and we're already getting a victory lap from Denny.
Congrats. That is quite a record. And
do you know how hard it is to run a victory lap on kickers? Come on.
I was going to say the Koo family, they don't ever want to hear his name in your mouth ever again because you were out on him over the summer.
Well, yeah.
Out on the best player in football.
It's the process, Koo family.
Yeah, they're joining the lawsuit against you, the many lawsuits that this corporation has against you right now. We're going to go on a question sprint to end the show. We got 5 or 6 minutes left on a good football show. Fantasy Kickoff served by Applebee's. Daigle, Leonard Fournette, Tyler Boyd, half PPR. And this question is Leonard Fournette a top 16 running back this week?
I take his touches in this case, but there is some risk involved since Gio Bernard is active. Last week, game script situation set up perfectly. The lot of DFS hype for Fournette as well. I think he's a terrible play in DFS given how high he's going to be rostered. But redraft, I'll take the touches over Boyd, who was the one. And I honestly think just because he's not as talented as T. Higgins and Jamar Chase, who sort of faded away in the first few games whenever T. Higgins was healthy.
I've never been so quick to X out a player from my player pool than Leonard Fournette. As soon as I saw he was going to be on like 3% of rosters, and trust me, it was more than 3, but as soon as the number crossed the threshold of like 3, I was like, okay, we can take him out of the player pool.
I agree with the Fournette fading. I actually don't know if Gio is going to be like that big of a deal because he's been so hurt. They're going to be playing with a lead, hopefully, Tampa Bay. But yeah, I mean, Leonard Fournette, when the crowd goes in on Leonard Fournette, you definitely go out. Very good advice. Gilberto on YouTube, Denny, Chase Edmonds, Javonte Williams. We haven't heard Javonte's name much today, even though he's one of those guys, still has no separation with Melvin Gordon. We still never quite know where to rank him. What are you doing in this situation here in PPR?
It's tough. It's tough to be super bullish on either Denver running back because not because game script won't be on their side or anything, but because the Steelers are like a true pass funnel defense so far. So I just don't see one of them like busting out. I guess you could get like a big play or like a couple 1 yard dives into the end zone or something. But I actually do like Edmonds here.
Daigle, two kind of big names for this week we haven't talked about much. I mean, DeAndre Swift supposedly is healthy. A really bad game environment for the Lions, which is normally really good for him, but maybe not if he's not full health. Or Chuba gets one more week in place of Christian McCaffrey. Ceded a lot of work to Rodney Smith last week. What are you doing here?
I would go DeAndre Swift. Same situation as every week where they will likely be behind, missing 3 starting offensive linemen, 2 of which are Pro Bowlers. One will probably be a Pro Bowler in Penei Sewell eventually. But overall, we expect to see the same amount of targets, if not more, and negative game script for DeAndre Swift. I will take the points over Hubbard, who is not even the pass-catching running back, as that was Rodney Smith last week. Now, he may not be in a situation where he needs to do that. He still has 2 touchdown upside. Hubbard does in DFS, for instance, more on a site like FanDuel, since we know we don't need to worry about catches there, but Swift easily in redraft leagues.
Kyle, Kareem Hunt, kind of a trendy name and a really good matchup. We haven't talked about a ton this week. Laviska Shenault is trendy yet again with the Jaguars target tree being narrowed. Who are you going with in your flex?
I will take Laviska Shenault here. I mean, I think Kareem Hunt is like a good, player to have on your fantasy roster because he both has that like flex utility. And then obviously should anything happen to Chubb, we think he'll be a workhorse back. No reason not to believe that. But on a weekly basis, if I think I can get like wide receiver 2 numbers out of someone, I will probably take that player. I don't think this question specified PPR or not. Even I think in half PPR, you're still taking Shenault, who on a team now that really is going to have no choice but throw the football because they're underdogs against a team that can't defend the pass very well. It sets up well for both him and Marvin Jones. I like Hunt, but I really like Shenault this week.
Well, I don't know if you heard the Chargers don't field a run defense. I don't know if you've heard this. So I think Kareem Hunt is people are saying more and more Kareem Hunt this week over Laviska Shenault, but not you. On tight end premium, I mean, I'll stick with you, Daigle. I'll stick with you, Kyle, who just extolled Laviska Shenault's virtues. Or is Dawson Knox in this highest total game of the week too much to pass up in tight end premium?
I will still take Laviska Shenault here, especially since Laviska Shenault plays like a tight end. Maybe you can lobby that they can count his as point and a half. No, I still take Laviska Shenault, especially because tight end premium is probably unlikely to benefit Dawson Knox, who you're playing because he has double touchdown bonus. He's not catching like 10 passes in a game. He is at best the 4th pass catching option on a team that throws a lot, but he's still a distant 4th behind, Sanders, Beasley, Diggs. So the tight end premium is not going to give him as much of a benefit as it would, like obviously Darren Waller or just any, Mike Gesicki, for instance. I don't think Mike Gesicki has as much of a chance to score 2 touchdowns. Today, he's got like 10 catch upside at a minimum. So I'll still take Shenault here, even if you give, I would assume it's like a 1.5 multiplier for Dawson Knox receptions. I still don't think he comes particularly close to Shenault.
If I could mention one thing from Pat Crane's Friday column, the Friday walkthrough, he had a great paragraph on Laviska Shenault. He mentioned that Shenault last week was targeted on an elite 32% of his routes and produced an elite 33% target share after DJ Chark went down very early in that Thursday night game. Is Crane being bullish on Shenault a shock? No, but he makes good points. And I think folks who are struggling with, what do I do with Laviska in the post-Chark Jaguars offense? I think you have to factor in like a new role for him. Like he's not going to be used the way that he was before Chark went down.
The new role is called playing behind Dan Arnold. We will close the show, Daigle, Deebo Samuel or Mike Evans in standard. And basically, are we concerned about Deebo Samuel at all with the 49ers maybe kind of going to like their line of scrimmage offense again and like really reducing his ADOT again? Or are we not concerned about Deebo Samuel with Trey Lance under center?
No, the usage was still there last week. He's run around on 92% of the team's dropbacks. Not an issue whatsoever for Deebo Samuel. There is some risk. The offense could be volatile, but again, volatility is always correlated with negative results when that's not the case. It also means they could blow up and be the best offense in the league with Trey Lance. We have no idea. Will I go Evans in this situation or go Samuel? And standard, we're chasing Evans touchdowns, right?
I think so. It's tough to say, though. It's very tough to say.
I think I'm chasing Evans touchdowns in a blow up spot. Remember, even game script doesn't matter for the Bucs. Pass play rate, second highest with a lead in the league this year. So they're still going to pass the ball when they're ahead, which also why I think Fournette's a pretty bad play overall. But for Other questions we see, just to sum it all up real quick, AJ Brown should be considered closer to a low-end wide receiver 1. So get the questions about with low-end wide receiver 2 starter sits out of here. Just start AJ Brown, easy life. Antonio Gibson is an easier play than Joe Mixon, given the questions surrounding Joe Mixon. Get Mixon out of here, easy life. And then Laviska Shenault is more like a low-end wide receiver 2 with upside, given his new role. So the question was like Emmanuel Sanders in that. No, that's not the same thing. Treat Laviska like his new role is treating him.
And Denny, just be a man and ask the question to our face about Laviska or Emmanuel Sanders. Don't put it in the questions for the show. That is unfortunate. All the time we have today. The questions were great. I mean, they're hard. This is a really, really good group of questions today. Best of luck in week 5. Join us again this exact same time, noon Eastern, next Sunday on a good football show, Fantasy Kickoff, served by Applebee's. We love having you with us. We're doing it all year. Check out our recap pod on Mondays of all the week 5 action. All our articles on the site. Daigle's Waiver Wired. It's Waiver Wired Q&A on Monday evenings with Pat Carrain. So thanks for joining us today. We hope you're back next week, and good luck in week 5.